Hello, you're welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I made a Flappy Bird clone game in Godot engine 4.3 using just visual scripting. Now many people think this is impossible, and I have been able to create this, and I'm making a tutorial to explain how it was made. If you want to play this game, you can be able to get it on my each account where you're going to be able to see this game. So this is Tinny Fishy Windows game. So it's actually for Windows, and you can be able to get it just for Windows. So if you're interested in playing your first visual scripting game made in Godot 4.3, you can go ahead to actually get this game for a very little amount, and that will be also a way to support my work. And also, if you want to be able to create a similar game after you have watched my breakdown, you can actually go to here where I have the template pack, where I have a couple of things. I have the desktop game, which is the game itself, you can play it, and the assets, and also the template, which is actually the project file of the entire Godot source code. So you have all the scripts and everything inside the file here. So if you actually unzip that file, you can be able to see everything there. And I also have a game design document inside it that you can be able to use to read through to see different things you can be able to do, or you have to pay attention to whenever you are making your own game. And then you also have a visual scripting codes. All these codes here, you have a PDF file where I've actually put them together, so you can actually get to study different codes that can be used to create several things inside Godot 4.3 visual scripting. If you want to just play the game, you can get this one. If you want to be able to study how to make the game, you can get this particular one. All right, so now let's go into the breakdown. So the first part of this is that I created the graphics I use for this particular game inside Inkscape. So if you think Inkscape is not very good, it's actually very good. All these things were created inside Inkscape, both the sprites. So I just had to create different versions of it. So if you actually look at it, you see different parts of the shape. So I have this, and I have the one where I rotated it, and I have this. So let's go into the code here. So if you come in here, we'll have the player. So let's talk about the player. So the player has the node 2D, and it has the character 2D node, which is actually the main character here, and the collision and animated sprite. So we use animated sprite to be able to create different animations, so we can be able to make the character be able to move automatically, and we'll have to turn on this particular loop here so that it can be able to loop continuously. So if you actually go into the code, you see that you have the ready function, we'll have the ready event, and then it runs the animation. The animation it runs is that swim. So the swim is actually this animation that you have here. So that's the swim here. So for it to be able to keep on swimming. So here we'll have the physics process. So the physics process has a sequence, and the first sequence here will have a branch that gets the swim button. So we'll have the action swim, and then the branch. So whenever you click, you press on the swim button, which is actually the space bar, you can be able to translate. So the movement here right now is controlled by the speed. So this is the speed, and the speed is actually a variable that is 150 here, depending on your scene and how big your sprite is. And then we'll have the get swim. The get swim is actually what makes it to move up. So this is the upwards direction. So it's moving up and at this speed. So this is how we're able to get them. And this is actually our vector that we are using to multiply this integer here. And then we'll have to translate and then move and slide, so it can be able to collide with objects. That's this particular. If this is not there, it can pass through objects and nobody will notice it. So here is actually an audio for the jump sound. If you actually play the game, you see that it has a jump sound. This is where we'll have that. I didn't put it here because it's best you put the whole sounds inside the main scene, so that if you actually go down here, you actually see where I have all the sounds there. So the final part of the code here is over here. You have the next one, which is actually the gravity. So now I'm multiplying the delta by the gravity. So the gravity itself is actually a downwards movement, about 1,000. Okay, so I'm multiplying by the delta, so it's actually going to be going smoothly. And then that's what controls the translate. The translation, this is the gravity that makes it to go down automatically, and then you just put your move and slide there. And that is how whenever you start the game, the fish begins to descend, and then when you press your space bar or you click on the screen, it can be able to actually begin to move up at this particular speed, and that is for the player. Now we'll have the obstacle. Let's go into the obstacle. So the obstacle is simply a very simple, we have different obstacles here. We have the node, that is the main route. So the upper obstacle is this particular one on top here. So we'll have this, it has a sprite, which is actually the sprites that you have from your assets. You can be able to get in your assets if you have the asset pack already with you, but if not, you can just create your own. So we'll have the collision. So we'll have this here. Now we'll have the obstacle code here. I'm going to come to that, but then we'll have the lower obstacle. So this is the lower obstacle here. And then we'll have also the detector. Detector is what we use in detecting whenever this particular, when the fish passes through the center without touching this upper and lower collision. So if you actually go to the code, you see that I have done something here. This is the upper obstacle. So whenever the upper obstacle is touched, when body entered, if you actually go into the upper obstacle, see you have the signal here, and that's where you get a signal. That's signal, body enter signal. So whenever it touches, it's going to check in group if it's player. So this player is actually, we have given to this character here for the player. So we made it to be in the group players. So right now, when you check this, if it's in that group, you check it and then you set playing, and this is the sound. The sound is also in the main, which is actually the sound for, if you actually click here, you actually see where the sound is coming from. So this is the sound from the main, and it's actually for hits. Whenever you hit something, that's the sound that it's going to play. Now it's going to wait for 0.3 seconds, and then it's going to set the game over. This is the game over control. So the game over is actually a separate scene, but I actually have to make it local in the main so that I can be able to set it visible here. So when you set it visible, it's going to also set the entire, it's going to pause the entire game. So that's the reason why whenever you touch the upper or lower obstacle, is going to just stop immediately. So when it stops, it's going to show you this is the display of the game over screen. So that is how you're able to actually put up the game over screen and then make the player to lose the game if it touches the upper part of the screen. So over here we'll have the lower obstacle. The same thing is what we did here, just like we did for the upper one. And then you have the detector body. So that's the other one, the one below it, that this particular one here. So that particular one now, if it touches the player, is going to check it and is going to set a score. Now this score is actually a variable in the main. So if you go to the main, it has a variable called score, and that is how we can be able to, we are going to be able to increase it and have it appear on the screen. So whenever you pass through the center without touching it, so it's going to know that you have passed through it. It's going to set a score. It's going to get that score and the value and add 1 to it and set it to that value, and then it will play that sound. The sound is going to play is the pass audio. That's when you have passed that particular net without, or that particular line without touching the obstacles. So that's basically these things we are actually gotten by transferring or dragging things. I'm going to show you how I do that. If you just click here, you can be able to actually get, because the variable was exported, so you can be able to just drag it in from here and just drop it here, and that is how you can get these variables and be able to actually change the value. So over here we'll have the ready event, and the ready event is what we use in making this obstacle to be appearing at different lines so that they are not appearing in the same sequence. Because if you actually look at this particular obstacle here, it's coming from the center here, so we want it to be coming from here. Maybe this center now will be up here or there or there or there. So how we did that was that we now made a ready function and told this that it should, on its own, it will be randomly selecting different positions. So whenever it changes the position of this particular the spawn, when it's spawning the obstacles, they will be spawning at different positions. So we'll have the position of 0, 1, 20. So you have to just check your positions and change all those things. These positions we actually gotten from this, if you actually click over here, because you're going to be using this one here, the obstacle holder, that's where you're getting this thing here. So if you actually go there, you have your position and you can just drag it in here, set position, and then you can be able to set that position to whatever you want. So you have 0, 16. So you have different positions I've actually set. So you check the one that works for you, and then you can be able to, use it. So that's actually how we got the randomness of our game. So now let's go into the spawn. So the spawn is actually what spawns that particular obstacle continuously when the game starts. So when the game starts, if you actually go to the main, you actually see that we have here, we'll have the spawn holder and we'll have the object spawner and we'll have a code on it, and it has a timer under it. So this timer, we had to use this signal to turn on the timeout. So whenever the timeout is finished, we're going to wait for 0.1 second, okay, and then we're going to instantiate. So the instantiate, once instantiate the obstacle object or obstacle scene, and then it's going to add child. Now whenever you're doing this, just pay attention that you can always get instantiate from here by right clicking and typing instantiate scene, but then to get this you must have to drag this out, if not you can't find this child. And that is how you add a child, and then you can just add this to this, and that's how you can be able to instantiate. This can be used for creating bullets or player spawns and different kind of things. You can be able to use this same very simple code to do. So that's for object spawn, obstacle spawn. So the obstacle, this keeps on spawning the obstacle endlessly, whenever the time is timer out, the timer is out. So the timer is actually 2 seconds that I've actually put it. So after 2 seconds, it's going to just be spawning a new obstacle towards the player. So for the main here, we have a script, and the script is very simple. So we'll have the physics process, and then it's going to set the score. So remember, we'll have a score variable that we talked about that has been exported, that can be accessed in the obstacle scene. When you actually touch the middle obstacle, the detector, it can be able to increase the score value. So when you get the score value, so here we are getting a value, and then we are also setting it here. This is simply by dragging this out. You can get a get score, or you set the score. So when you set the score, you get it here. So it's going to be giving you the updated version of it each time, and it's going to set this. So this particular text here is actually a text that we'll have at the front here. So this is a text here. That's how we have to display it whenever it passes through the center without touching the obstacles. This value will be changed. So it's going to set this value, and then over here is going to also get this same score again, and it's going to just get it and also set it for the game over. So he's setting it for the game over. Remember, the game over screen is actually invisible. So it's actually, once it turns visible, it also show you this particular one. This is for the game over screen, and this one is for the counter in the front here. So if you actually go over here, you actually see the counter. That's the counter control, and we actually made it to be a child of control so that it can be appearing on top of the screen, and then we'll have the score here. So if you look at the score is actually a label, and to be able to get that, you just simply get a label, you just drag this out, and you have set text, and that's actually how we got this here. And once you set it to the value here, you drag this here and drag this in here, it can be able to actually update the value of whatever. Whenever you actually move through the center, it will be updating it over here. And if it's game over, it will actually show it on the game over screen. If you actually turn on your game over, you actually see the score over there too. So that's for the label for the score. The next one we'll have is the floor. So the floor here is actually the floor. If you actually go to the main, you see that we'll have the floor up here. So it's always there. I didn't really want to bring it out because it's like water. So so the floor here is this code here. So we made it in such a fashion that whenever the player touches it, okay, it's going to check it, and it's going to wait for 0.2 seconds, and it's going to display the game over screen and set the game pause. It will pause the game, okay, that's this entire scene, to pause the entire scene and set it to game over. So either you fall, either you touch your obstacle, if you touch the upper or lower obstacle, or you touch the floor, that's actually game over for you. So that's how we did it. We made this to be an area 2D, and also they'll have the sprite and the collision here. So, but then we actually have to instantiate everything here and make it local in this place for easy access. Then the next code we'll have is the game over screen. So the game over screen is very simple. So the game over screen is just something like this. So we'll have a score. Whenever it displays the game over, we're going to be showing the score, okay, and then we can start again. Now, we also remember that after creating it here, we have to make it local in the main here for us to easily access everything inside it. So here we'll have the first, what we'll have is the start button. So whenever you click on the start button, it's going to make the game over screen invisible, because by default, the game over screen is invisible in the main. So once it touches the obstacles, it will become visible. But then when you now click on the start button, it will make it invisible again. And once it makes it, it will set the pause to 0. That's it will unpause the game. It will play the game again. That's what this does. And then it's going to change the entire scene and reload the main again so that the game starts from the beginning. That's how we're able to refresh the game, so that whenever the game, you have a game over, it will, this particular thing will refresh the game and you start from 0 again. So that's what we can be able to do. So this game over screen is actually, we had to import it to this place, and then we'll have to make it to become local here. And then if you look at here, it's actually invisible right now. This is how it usually is going to appear, but then we had to make it invisible here so that we can easily control it with the code. Then the next code here we'll have is the pause. So the pause has a few things. So if you look at the pause here, there's the pause screen. It just looks something very simple like this. So we'll have the holder, which is actually a control that enables you to be able to display on the top. And we'll have the pause screen, which is actually a sprite. And then we'll have the two buttons, the play and the quit. So the code that controls it here is that whenever the physics process starts, now I had to make a cell, because this is actually a Windows game, so I had to add the escape button, okay, to be controlling the pause. So once you press the escape button, this is what we're doing here. Action UI cancel is going to check it, and it's going to set visible. The pause screen now will be set visible. By default, the pause screen and the game over screen are invisible, but once you press this escape, you will get it to become visible. And then also it will set the pause to become pause, so it will actually pause the entire game. This is actually what it means to set pause. So to be able to get this set pause, is you simply just right click, go to your scene, get a scene tree here, and then you can drag this out and you can get pause, and that's how you get set pause there. But one of the most important thing here is that this pause screen, okay, this pause screen is going to have a particular feature that will enable you to be able to work. If not, once you pause with this, it's going to pause the entire game and you can't play again. So I'm going to go to the main and show you something very important. So if you actually go to the pause here, look at this, the pause here, you see that this is the feature that we have here in the main game here. So if you go down to process, I have inherit here, okay? But then if you actually go down more to here, you actually see that this is just the holder, but the main pause screen, which is actually what I imported from here, I made it is invisible, and I made it to be always. Now always means that whenever you pause the screen, this particular pause screen will still be on, even though every other thing will be paused. So if you don't do this, when you pause a game, everything will be paused. But if you do it, when you pause it, every other thing will be paused except this one. So you can actually go ahead if you also want to pause your buttons, or maybe do the same thing on your button. But as long as the buttons are under this particular main node here, okay, if they're under it and it's in always, that means that everything within it is going to be playing even when other things are paused. So here we'll have, so that's for using the escape key to pause. Then we'll also have the pause on pause event. So the pause event is actually what I use in pausing. So if you actually go to your main screen, you actually see there is a pause button over here. So that's a very simple button that we actually put there. So if you look at here, you have the pause. So I just removed something here. Look at that. That's the pause button there. So you can, that's how we're able to get this. So if you actually go over to this place, you see that I had to make it to be unpressed. So that's a signal from this button here. I told you whenever it's pressed, I connected it to the pause script, which is actually attached to the pause button here. So I told it if it's paused, then you should set this to visible, and that's what is setting to visible now is the pause screen. So this is a pause screen here, which is actually this thing that has been made local here. So you put it here and then you set the entire scene to become paused. So, but if you don't want to continue, because the pause screen always shows both the quit button, it also shows the quit button with it. So if you don't want to play any longer, you can just do scene and then you get your quits. And this is actually, if you just drag this and type quit, you'll just get your quits. And that's how you can create a quit button inside of Godot using visual scripting. Then you also have your play button. That's another button there. So if you click on play, now it will set the entire pause to 0, like it's going to turn it off. And then that's for the scene. And then it's going to set that pause screen to become invisible again, because by default it's actually invisible. Now, one more thing you have to pay attention to is that whenever you right click and instantiate a child, okay, whenever you instantiate, let's say the pause screen, if you instantiate it, you want to be able to right click on it and click on make local. Let me see if I have anything here that I have not made local. Nothing here. I'm just going to just quickly do that so you see what I mean. So if you instantiate a child, let's say for example the floor, and you open it, now there's the floor here, is over there. By default, everything is actually still on the other side. Now there are certain things you can have access to, like the other elements or nodes within it. So you can right click and make it local. And that is how I was able to import all these things here. Now this is very important because it's easier to be able to access things. And sometimes if you don't do this, there are certain things, let's say for example, variables or different features or different nodes that you want to have access to their properties inside a particular code, and you will not be able to. So it's usually easier that you actually make them local here and work with it. That's what I have from my experience using visual scripting here. So over here I have the other one, the stats. So we'll have the start screen. So the start screen is this one here, and I have this here. So this start screen here has animation. So I have animation player. I just created an animation player and then added an animation where I just animated to be going down and up, and then added it to animation tree. So and just connected it, and that's made it to keep on playing continuously. That's why you have it here. And this particular sprite here is actually an animated sprite. So it's going to be whenever the game starts, it keeps on playing. So we'll have the start button here, and if you actually go into the scripts for the start, you have when you have a ready event, you have a pause, set pause. So here we'll have, the ready event, once the game is ready, is going to pause the screen. So this is what we're able to get, because by default, whenever the game starts, it's going to just play the game. But here we're not doing it in such a way that whenever the game starts, it's going to just be paused automatically once it begins. And then we are going to now click on the start button for us to unpause the game, and then set that particular start screen to become invisible for us to be able to play the game. And if you don't want to play a game, you can be able to just quit the game, and that's the quit here. You get your scene and then you get your quit. So that's how we're able to create the game. Once it starts, this one is actually moving. So look at here. If you actually go to the main, you see that I did the same thing that I did for the pause. So if you go to your start screen, you see that I made it to become always 2. So whenever the game starts, by default, everything is paused, but this one keeps on moving. And that's the reason why this one keeps on moving, even when I start playing the game, when I turn on the game for the first time. So, but when I click on start, then everything starts playing again. So that's for the start. And I think I've talked about the floor, and that is how we can be able to create the entire game. So if you actually go into your main scene here, you see that everything was brought in here. the background is actually a color that I actually made a bit transparent from here. So if you look right here, I just made a bit transparent. And other things I have my player, so everything about the player, and then this is what spawns the obstacle that spawns obstacles. That's what we have over there, and then we'll have the game over screen here. So that's the game over screen over there, and then we have the pause button that we'll have over there. So you can have the pause button just somewhere there that you can be able to use, and then you have under it you now imported the pause holder, which is actually this one here. So the last thing that is here that I just added is I added an invisible button that enables you to be able to tap on the screen, and if you don't want to press space bar, because imagine if this was a touch screen laptop, or you want to put it for web or even for mobile, this comes in handy because it's actually a touch screen button. So whenever you tap on the screen, it's going to still be able to, just like normal Flappy Bird kind of game, you just tap on the screen and it keeps on, jumping or swimming. So that's how I was able to achieve that. So all I did was I selected, I brought in a touchscreen button, and then I added the swim action into it, and then put the invisible sprite. The invisible sprite, I created it inside Inkscape by just simply selecting and just creating a box and removing the entire color on it. So I just went into this and into the fill and remove the fill and remove the stroke, and you just get an invisible button. So you don't see it, you just drag over it and you export it to this, and that's how you're able to create that invisible button. With that invisible button, you can be able to actually create the touch screen click. So I didn't use any gestures here, just did that. So I think that's the complete breakdown of how I made this game inside Godot engine using just visual scripting. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and go get the game and play your first game that has been created with visual scripting in Godot engine. I know that many people have not done that. At least just have the experience, play the game, and also get the template pack, and be able to learn how to do this. Because if this is possible, then I wonder what more we can do. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.